You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler. I'm your host. I'm a Silver Fox advisor and the founder of OneBestConsult.com. Thank you for taking time to join us today. I think we have a really great show lined up for you for this week. As we move into a holiday period, the weather isn't that great outside. Now, I apologize, my voice a little raspy. I think I caught too much of that good old cold, wet air. But we're here, and we want to provide you with great information, ideas that we hope you can use in your business even today. So please pay attention. I encourage you, grab your pad and pencil and get ready to take notes as we talk about everything business right here on the Weekly Business Hour. Couple of items I want to touch base with you on before we get started with our great studio guest. First of all, the show is sponsored by that's the number one, bestconsult.com. That's where you can find common sense advice for your small business. We're a business community. We have all kinds of members from all over the world who are there. We exchange ideas. I'm personally available to be your mentor. Be glad to talk to you about that. But I encourage you, the big thing today is to go to number one, bestconsult.com and check us out, because we may be there. We may be the secret to help you unlock the value in your business. So check us out. Also, during the course of the show, if you have a question about the show, a topic, one of our guests, or in general, you just have a question about your business, I encourage you, please send it to me. Send it to onebestconsult@gmail.com. So now we're ready. Pick up those pencils, grab those pads, and we're going to start our show. And first of all, we're going to introduce, we have a great business guest with us today. We're starting a new Soup to Nuts series entitled Leadership Philosophy. And for that, we have, I think, someone who really, really understands leadership, not just theoretically, but practically because of their experience. And I want to welcome Terry Weaver of the VEL, that's the Veterans Entrepreneur Leadership Institute, to our show. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rick. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to be with us in this three-part series. I'm excited. I've gone over the material you've given me, and I think there's a lot here for our listeners. And before we get started, though, let's talk about it so people understand, if they're not in this area, they may not have heard of the VEL Institute. Share with us, if you will, for our listeners, what the VEL Institute is all about and what its purpose is.
Sure. We built an institute called VEL Institute, and all the info is at velinstitute.org. You can also check us out on Facebook. But it really is designed to collaborate. We connect and develop veterans, entrepreneurs, and leaders. And we do that through programs that we hold: leadership development programs, personal growth programs, and business startup programs. We also hold keynotes 3 times a year where we bring in notable speakers on leadership and entrepreneurship. And we flip. We go leadership, one keynote, and then we'll move to entrepreneurship for the next. So it's a legitimate institute that we're building. We think that there's a need for it, a huge need for collaboration between veterans, entrepreneurs, and leaders. One, to help vets reacclimate, but to help prepare them for the future. Also, there's a lot of people in our country, in our community, that want to learn from veterans. They want to integrate with veterans. They want to learn from them, learn from their experiences. So it's a neat concept that's really taken off.
Well, I think it really is. I've attended some of your keynotes, and what I found really neat about your keynotes speakers, not only are they good speakers, ladies and gentlemen, but people stayed around afterwards almost for as long as the speaker spoke. I mean, there's a lot of exchange of ideas, talking about the topic, exactly what I think a keynote should be. It's not just listen, get up, and go away, go home, and think about it later. You're building quite a community, is what I call it, of people willing to help each other and exchange ideas. One little thing I'd like to do, though, before we do get started is give us a little bit of your background. I mean, you've started this wonderful institute here in Montgomery County. Give us a little bit of background and what motivated you to do this.
Sure. I joined the Navy at 17, had my 18th birthday in boot camp, my 21st birthday in Kuwait, right before invading Iraq, and spent 5 years total in the military. Got out. My goal was to make as much money as possible. And I was sick of people telling me what to do, and I swore that it would never happen again. And I was very feral back then. And I worked in corporate America for a long time, 10 years, made some really good money, and really just started to miss serving. I really missed being a part of something bigger than myself. So we started what was then called the Warriors Refuge. And that started back in 2014, and we grew, and it grew to a point where I couldn't do it anymore on my own. And one of the best decisions I made was to ask for help. Got a couple veterans to help me, and they joined the team as co-founders. We rebranded as VEL Institute and really have started to focus, clarify, and educate people since then, since 2015 when we reestablished as VEL Institute. And we're looking to implement technology so people can take our courses from anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world. That's going to happen in 2019. Super excited about that.
Yeah, that's a great change. That's something we're seeing everywhere. Well, let's get into this topic. I mean, building a leadership philosophy or a leadership philosophy, I guess we start by building it. Give us your thoughts on what you need to do to build a good leadership philosophy for yourself.
So we're going to talk about once you've decided to take the step of faith, kind of into the unknown and become a leader. And that's exactly what it takes to be a leader. You got to step out into the unknown. You have to get past the question, what will people think? That's the most daunting question that we face. We're worried about what people will think if I decide to do this. Once you can deal with that question and step into becoming a leader, and it's an evolution, it doesn't happen overnight, and I'm a student of leadership. It's an ongoing thing for me. Then you can start to prepare a leadership philosophy. We may get the question, what if I'm not a leader now? Well, there's a good quote by Abraham Lincoln. It says, if you prepare now, you'll be ready when the opportunity presents itself. So start preparing now to become a leader. Start preparing a leadership philosophy now so you can make an impact when the opportunity presents itself. Every leader should have a leadership philosophy. It gives us a framework to deal with life, okay? It gives us a framework to deal with circumstances, emotions, challenges, obstacles. And I want to give you an example. The other day, I went to listen to a speaker. He's a notable speaker. He's been on national television. I was super excited. And over the course of 20 minutes, I was hit with some statements that really offended me to the point where I wanted to interrupt this person and tell him he was wrong in front of 100 people. And that emotion began to bubble up in me. And the only thing that stopped me is my leadership philosophy. And specifically, there's a book that we read in one of our courses called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And as a leader, we have to seek first to understand. So my job as a leader, if I'm going to be a leader, to stay consistent as a leader, I have to seek first to understand and then to be understood. So I can't call myself a leader and then interrupt somebody before I seek to understand what they're trying to present. That's just a kind of a tactical example of having a leadership philosophy and what it can do for you. It can keep you from making a big mistake. And it did.
You know, and that makes a lot of sense. One of the things you've shown me is that when one chooses to be a leader, you assume responsibility. Talk about that for a moment, if you would.
Yeah. Well, the best way to explain it is as a leader, your voice, your example, it carries more weight than if you're not a leader. Leaders don't prop themselves up on a pedestal. True leaders don't, okay? But because they are out in front, their example and their words are given more attention, period. So we have to be extra careful. We have to understand what leadership is all about. It's all about others. And it is a responsibility. It's a huge responsibility because we have the ability to influence others significantly more than somebody else.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense. When I think about leaders, I think about those that serve in the military. I think about those that serve in government. But even as a father or the leader of a business, what we're talking about today, I don't think that we just, as leaders of businesses, small businesses, we don't think enough about that responsibility that we have sort of looking in the mirror for those folks who work with us, our customers, our vendors, all the people associated with our business. That empowers me to think about that I'm responsible in some way or some fashion for all these people.
Yeah, I think you said it. Everybody is setting an example. You're leading somebody, whether you believe it or not. And your example is the most powerful indicator of your leadership ability.
Well, if you're ready, let's jump into some of the key factors in building that leadership philosophy. What's the first thing that you would look at or encourage people to look at?
Well, let me start first with two quick stories.
Okay, please.
And these are stories of mistakes that I made. They happened less than 10 years ago, and they happened serving under different types of leaders. The first one took place when I was in the heavy duty truck industry, and I went out and I was excited because I was about to get the first natural gas heavy duty truck deal. It was a close to $1 million deal, and we didn't have all the bugs sorted out in the contract. We weren't ready, and I knowingly went and had the customer sign a contract for these trucks. And I thought to myself, well, we'll sort out the details afterward. I made a big mistake. When I got back to my office, I was a sales manager at the time. When I got back to my office, I got a phone call to come up to my boss's office. And I had my boss, his boss, and my boss's boss there.
Oh, wow.
That was being set up. And I knew I screwed up. I walked into that office, and the first thing that was said to me was, give me one good reason you shouldn't be fired right now. And my heart sank. And I started to prepare all the reasons why I was a good salesperson, and I was looking out for the dealership. But the fact was I screwed up. However, the way that they handled that determined my next steps. I gave them all the reasons why I shouldn't be fired, and I didn't get fired. However, I put my notice a week later because I was threatened and I felt unsafe. The next story is about when I left there and actually worked for a customer, different type of leader. He gave me a lot of autonomy. So we were preparing for a big move. I was in the heavy transportation industry, and we had this, I think it was a 150,000 pound piece of equipment to move. And I wanted to do this on my own and say, okay, I got this done. Look, we were able to do this, and I rushed into it. And without verifying the correct information, I sent this 150,000 piece of equipment on the road that required a bunch of officers to make sure it was safe. Have you ever seen them on the road?
Oh, yes.
There's cops trailing them. Well, I sent this piece of equipment over to a customer, and when it got there, it was too tall to get in the building, which means it had to come back to our yard. We had to replace it on a different trailer and take it back. I'm talking about a multi-$1,000 mistake. When I went into my boss's office, I was worried, right? I was worried, but he said, you know what? You screwed up. Let's figure this out. See, he had already had thousands of dollars invested in this training, if you think about it. And he says, we'll get through this. He was visibly frustrated. And I made the call to send this thing over, this big piece of equipment over on the wrong piece of equipment without talking to him. I wanted to be a hero. And I made a mistake, and he said, we'll figure this out. Two different leadership styles. One involved somebody threatening me. The other one involved somebody embracing the fact that I screwed up and we're going to get through it. Which one do you think I stayed with and learned from and came to love? The guy who accepted my mistake and said, we'll get through this and we'll work on it. We'll learn from it. So those are two different leadership philosophies. And I think one of the number one characteristics for a leader is you have to care for your people. You have to be for them. And I think to build a leadership philosophy, if you're a leader, the number one principle is you have to invest in your people.
Well, you gave two, I think, really great stories because they were in the same industry, generally speaking, and showed the reaction to a situation that's probably occurred to everybody in some way, somehow. We all screw up, especially when we're learning in the early years, and I think that's wonderful. Well, believe it or not, we're to the end of our first quarter hour. We're going to take a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us because we're going to start building this leadership philosophy model. And when we come back, Terry's going to give us an idea of several other things you need to build your leadership philosophy. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776.
We have the safest food supply in the world. Strict laws and regulations restrict the usage of hormones, antibiotics, and pesticides within our food supply. Production agriculture practices and technologies such as the use of GMOs, which is not any more or less risky than conventional crop production, has allowed American farmers to produce more food on less acres in environmentally sound ways. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make lives better.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julian Shea here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour. I'm Rick Schissler, your host, and we're having a conversation here with Terry Weaver. Terry Weaver's the founder and the director of the VEL Institute, Veterans Entrepreneur Leadership Institute, and we're talking about a leadership philosophy, the idea that each of us needs some type of philosophy to be the leader we need to be in all facets of our life. Well, Terry, when we went to that break, we were talking about people development as what I call the first building block. Let's pick up there and keep going.
Yeah, we're going to talk about people development, and then we're going to kind of reverse engineer it and talk about why our number one goal as a leader needs not to produce followers, but to produce more leaders. That should be your number one goal. And it sounds like it's counterintuitive that you would spend all your time investing in others. But the fact is when you invest in others, you build a bond, and they follow you. So our number one goal as a leader is not to produce more followers, but to produce more leaders. And we do that by investing in people. When we do that, you don't have to worry about a followership. When we're focused on others, focused on producing more leaders, people naturally follow you. They naturally follow you because you're serving them.
So what you're saying is that we all have to also have a training mode in a sense that we're training or building new leaders, and that makes sense because they also will be with us. They're not just going to be followers. Wherever we go, they lead, as you've seen, I think, many times, even some of the old movies about some leader is going, and it's all about follow me, but you're building leaders, then you've got your group intact. I like that. Training mode. I got to be in that training mode every day. Yeah,
we should be in a training mode. And the fact is we're all looking for good leaders. I'm looking for good leaders to follow. It doesn't matter where you're at in your career, but people are looking for leaders. They're looking for somebody to invest in them, to take them to the next level. I've coined this as an exponential leader because we tend to think in zero-sum mentalities. Well, I only have so much time, or I only have so much energy, so much ideas, so much capacity to give. But if you got to get rid of that thinking. As an exponential leader, if you'll invest in other people and you'll develop other leaders, your leadership will grow simultaneously. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about job security. It takes care of itself.
Well, not to get off the subject, but that also leads to one of the things I think is important in building the business is to build people that you can trust and you can delegate to. That in that trust factor, now that I'm building leaders, then those are people I should be able to trust at a higher level than just having someone who's a quote-unquote employee. I like that idea.
That's good, and I agree with you 100%. So let's kind of back into this and talk about the why. We talked about the number one goal of a leader is not to produce more followers, but to produce more leaders. Why is that? Well, the number one desire for any person is to grow and live a meaningful life, right? That's the number one desire. I want to live a meaningful life. Okay. If you're constantly investing in other people, your followers, the people who work with and around you, they will experience that because you're investing in them, you're teaching them, you're letting them be the leader that they need to be. So it's a self-feeding idea, self-feeding principle. You invest in others, they follow because they want to make a meaningful life.
It makes sense. It's a great, almost a circle that's happening, that you draw and you're strengthening each other. Boy, I bet this, if you can achieve this as a leader, and I'm talking to everyone who's listening as well, think about how strong your organization is going to be. Think about how strong you're going to be because you've built strong people. I love this idea. Tell us more.
Well, not everybody will gravitate towards a leader that's investing in them. But there's a neat quote: when the student is ready, the leader will appear. So, as a leader, we want to help everybody. We want to invest in everybody around us. We want to see everybody grow. Not everybody's ready for that, but that's okay. We can do it to the point where we see. Well, we were talking earlier, and we talked about the fact that we can't want somebody to develop and succeed and grow as a leader more than they want it, right? It has to be like a self-feeding relationship. So I believe that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. When I was ready to grow and advance and become more than I was, I found a leader, a teacher, many teachers. They appear.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Some people may feel that's kind of mystical, but that is the way it works. I know from my experience. One of the things that you put out there too that I think is great is the quality of affection that a leader needs to take. Let's talk about that for a moment, if we may.
Yeah, this is pretty neat. And it's so unassuming that I was actually watching a training by General Mattis. General Mattis is a 4-star general. He was the commandant in the Marine Corps. He's now the Secretary of Defense under Donald Trump, our president. And he said one of the greatest qualities a leader can show to his people is affection. Now, this is coming from a 4-star general who's a war fighter. These guys they're trained to kill. His number one quality was affection to his team. When you care for somebody else, when you show them that you care for them, go back to my example of my boss. He cared for me more than that mistake. He cared for me more than the cost of the mistake that I made. Multi-$1,000 mistake. He cared for me more. When you care for somebody, man, they'll stick with you. You can't fake it. And affection is one of the greatest qualities a leader can show to their follower.
Give us some examples of how a leader in business can show affection to their employees or their leaders in training.
I think there's a good simple example. Let's say a leader's in place and he has multiple people working for him. By caring for your people and being authentic, if somebody comes and tries to complain about somebody else or say, hey, he did this, she did this, we can stop people right in their tracks and say, hey, look, let's bring him in on this conversation. I care about both of you. Let's get in, all of us together on this conversation and sort this out. And just defending people, just defending the fact that they need to be present when we're talking about them.
Well, and
care.
I think that's a great example in running a business like that and getting all that, I call it noise, off the table allows everybody to move forward, to work, to build the business. So that's another great thought. The ability to influence is something else that you mentioned to me as a leader. Well, obviously, as a leader, we want to be a positive influence towards the goals that we have. Talk to us about how we can show or create an atmosphere of being a positive influence.
Well, when I talk about the ability to influence, there's positional managers, positional leaders, and there are leaders who influence. Influential leaders are all about pulling people with them. People who aren't influential leaders or positional managers, they push people around. They say, hey, go do this. And they create order takers as opposed to true followers. So one of the greatest qualities of a leader is their ability to influence. And I think this especially comes into play when you're leading people who don't have to work for you, who maybe aren't getting a check. It comes into play with volunteer situations, community efforts. So I think our ability to influence people, it's one of the greatest qualities of a leader. And the way that you do that is casting vision. You cast vision. All of us want to be most of us, I don't like to do black and white. Most of us want to be a part of something bigger than us. Once we get down to it, we want to be a part of something that's important. So as a leader, we need to cast vision. We need to talk about a mission. Everybody needs a mission. And when we begin to cast vision and pull people in on a mission, well, they'll follow because they're looking to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. There's a good scripture, and I'm a spiritual guy, and I read the Bible. I think it's one of the best leadership manuals ever. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, it says, God has placed eternity in the hearts of men. He's placed eternity in the hearts of all men. When you can tap into that and talk about being a part of something bigger than ourselves, people come alive because it's in their heart.
Yeah, that's an interesting attitude. That scripture is right on point, though. There's nothing can be more powerful than that. That's amazing. We've got a minute or two left, believe it or not, today. And the next thing I'd like to touch on is, and this is one that's been talked about, I think, a lot, is the leader needs to be willing to work harder than the people around him. It's just, that's sometimes difficult for people to understand because you see these leaders behind the desk using that loosely, and they're handing out orders, they're sending things out, but they're not out there really, in my opinion, leading. Talk to us about working harder than the people around you.
Yeah, and I got to give credit to General Stephen Hummer. He's a local three-star Marine, and he spent 41 years in the Marine Corps. And I interviewed him, and I said, what are some important leadership characteristics? And he said, you got to be willing to work harder for your people than they are willing to work for you. And that's all about example. We can't get up in our ivory tower and set policies and procedures and just expect that people will join a mission and stay a part of it. We got to be out with our people, leading them from the front. I truly believe that. You got to be with your people and for your people. I think when a leader is distant and disconnected, they create disconnected followers. And people who are disconnected isolate, and isolation leads to really bad things. In extreme, it leads to death. People can't exist alone. And I want to know my leader, and I want to follow him in a relationship. And you can't look at this like, well, I've got 10 followers. How could I possibly outwork them all? That's not what this is about. It's about showing them how to lead. If we're creating more leaders, we need to show them how to lead, and we need to be out and among our people setting the example.
And that needs to be every day,
That's
not
right.
just one day a week or 2 days a week. Because I've been around several leaders in my life that, in my opinion, this is who they were. And you're right. I mean, we looked up to them. We followed them. We want to know how they did it.
Right.
We want to be close to them, right?
Yeah.
It motivates. It's just amazing. All people from all backgrounds. Very interesting. Well, we're to the end of our show today. You're going to be back next Monday. What are we going to touch on next Monday? Give us an idea.
Well, we'll stay with this leadership principle for a minute. We'll talk about the law of the lid, and we'll talk about culture, which is very important. And then we'll move on to the other principles.
Well, I can't wait. I've learned a lot today myself. Those of you who are listening, I hope the same is true. And we're going to take our bottom of the hour break now, and I hope you'll stick around with us because we're going to have several things. I'm going to do a quick recap of the show that we talked to with Terry, and then I'm going to provide you with a couple of thoughts of my own with my This is What's Going On Now and my Best Consult Tip of the Week. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Remember to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on your computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. Lone Star Community Radio broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Hey guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
Statistics show that 1 out of every 6 Texans struggles with food insecurity and hunger. And many people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables every day. The Better Living for Texans program is here to help you learn how to make healthy menu choices, save money at the grocery store, prepare quick and delicious meals, get more good nutrition in your day, and get more physical activity. Classes are fun, friendly, interactive, and free, and taught in English and Spanish. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Hey, Montgomery County and online listeners. Thank you so very much for checking out Jazzy Vibes with Soul. What? You haven't done so yet? Well, you've got to tune in. Hi, I am the host of Jazzy Vibes with Soul, Miss CeCe Holmes, and I invite you to check us out every Friday and Saturday from 7 until 9 p.m., where you will get the best in old school R&B and, of course, a little smooth jazz to make it jazzy. So tune in. That's right, tune in every Friday and Saturday right here on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM or worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a nonprofit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas, dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100% by volunteers since 1999. Our main objective is to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome boxers that come to us from many sources, including local animal shelters, owner surrenders, and strays. For more information about Lone Star Boxer Rescue, visit our website at lsbr.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your host. Again, I appreciate you taking time to listen to the show. I think we just had a wonderful conversation in our Soup to Nuts series with Terry Weaver on leadership philosophy. If you missed any of it, I encourage you to take a look at our podcast. Take a listen, take a look. We're on video as well as audio. You can find those podcasts typically posted on Wednesday following our show, YouTube, Facebook, all over social media. Just look for the Weekly Business Hour at your favorite social media site, and you can listen or re-listen if you like. A lot of good information in there, and I encourage you to take the time to catch up with us if you missed it. I also want to thank our sponsor, onebestconsult.com. Onebestconsult.com. That's the number one, bestconsult.com. That's a website that you can go join a business community of like-minded small business people. We exchange information. We try to help each other. I'm available personally as a mentor, and if you'd like to talk to me more about that, just go to the site and reach out to me. You can send me an email at onebestconsult.com, and I'll be glad to talk to you. I love talking business because that's not only what we do on this show, but it's what we do throughout the day. Well, first of all, I want to give you a little recap on what I heard and perhaps stimulate some thinking on your part, because I think, again, Terry provided us with a lot of food for thought on the idea of developing a leadership philosophy. That may be a hard concept for some of you in small business. I mean, I own a business. I have 1 or 2 employees, have 5 employees. Maybe it's just me, but I think it is important that you think about yourself as a leader. The first thing I would encourage you to do is don't try to mimic someone else. I mean, it's really easy, and I've been there and done it. You pick up a book, you watch a lecture, you watch something on the internet or listen to it. There's a lot of great speakers out there talking about leadership. Terry's one of them. He talks about it. They teach it at the VEL Institute. But I think it's important that we develop our own leadership philosophy and make a commitment. As an owner of a business, we need to be a leader, not just in the business, but in our personal lives, with our families, with our friends, in our church, throughout our lives. And if you start thinking about what a leader is and how important you can be in being a leader, and don't forget, the second thing is you don't have to be out front. You don't have to be center stage. Your name doesn't have to be on a poster plastered on the side of a building. You don't have to be on TV. Leaders in our own lives, all of us should be leaders in our own lives. It's an important concept that will help you build a stronger business. Again, even if you're only a sole proprietor and it's only you, because you build relationships, better relationships with your customers, your clients, with your vendors, potentially with employees, as you add employees. Now, if you have 50, 100, 1,000 employees, obviously leadership with those employees and doing that and leading that team is critical. But again, I think it's just as important if you're sole proprietor. So I encourage you to look at that idea. And thirdly, and I think this was something that Terry really came through, is the idea that once you're a leader, you've got to work harder than other people. When you say, well, gosh, I own my own business, I work hard, I come early, I come late. But the fact is, working harder, my dad used to have a philosophy about that. Don't tell me how hard you work today, tell me how smart you worked. Well, that's still important and it's still true. But when you work harder, you're out there, you're visible, people see it, they get a sense of it. You're not just a show off, but people, through your personality, your character, they feel strength and they feel attracted to you as a leader. They want to work with you. They want to do business with you. You raise children, the same thing happens. You're a leader. You're not going to let them loose and let them hang out there. When they make a mistake, and Terry talked about making mistakes, a true leader gets next to you and helps resolve and correct the mistake. And whereas the other company he worked for, they lined up all the bosses. I think it was 3 deep, 3 layers of bosses, and basically said, why shouldn't we fire you? Think about how intimidating that has to be for anybody. That wasn't a show of leadership. That was a show of strength and threat. And Terry did what? He quit that job. So I encourage you, think about the leadership. I encourage you, if you listen to the entire presentation by Terry today, take time and go back and re-listen, check your notes, and see if there's some particular areas in there that you could do. This is not hard, but you need to develop your own philosophy for leadership so you can build a better world for yourself, for your business, and for those that you love. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'm going to give you talk a little bit about in my Did You Know section. Why aren't you using word-of-mouth advertising? It's the least expensive advertising in the world, and so many businesses don't use it. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Statistics show that 1 out of every 6 Texans struggles with food insecurity and hunger. And many people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables every day. The Better Living for Texans program is here to help you learn how to make healthy menu choices, save money at the grocery store, prepare quick and delicious meals, get more good nutrition in your day, and get more physical activity. Classes are fun, friendly, interactive, and free, and taught in English and Spanish. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyperlocal audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out ourlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your questions. Get seen on TV, YouTube, and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Support your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, President of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julian Shea here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your host of the Weekly Business Hour. I'm also a Silver Fox advisor, as well as the founder of OneBestConsult.com. Well, did you know? A segment I present every week just for a few minutes to try to encourage you to make a small change in your business that might have a big impact. Today, we're going to talk about building your business with word of mouth marketing or advertising, depending on how you want to look at it. Word of mouth, that's when someone tells someone else that they do business with you, that they're happy with you, you're the greatest plumber in the world, you're the greatest supplier of valves in the world. People talk about you. And that's kind of a two-step thing. One is you have to be a great business. You have to run your business right. You have to execute well every day, every transaction. But then you got to get people to talk about you. And that's sort of, in my experience, is the stumbling block. How do I get people to talk about me? Well, if I'm doing the first thing right, I'm executing well, I'm delivering my products and services consistently, and we all have examples of that, and we should all be doing it in our business, because to me, it's one of the core characteristics of a successful business, that they're able to execute the transaction from seller to buyer, whether it's consumer or business, whoever your customers are, but it's flawless. It flows. You're offering good value. You got a good value proposition. All those things are happening every day in your business. So now the question is, how do we come up with a reason to encourage people to talk about us? I mean, we all have a lot to talk about. Just look at cable news, all kinds of loose conversation, a lot of it not very valuable, but we want people to see our business as valuable, worth talking about. Now think about it. You're a plumber. You go out to someone's house, you go to a business, you fix the toilet, you fix the sink. I mean, these are pretty mundane things, things that are easily comparable across a number of plumbers. But some people may deliver that service in a way that's memorable. And I'll give you a quick, easy example. My wife and I have a house in a rural area. I got a referral for a plumber. I called him. Guy came out, and this was not the man who owned the company. This was just one of his workers, or two of them actually, in a truck. And this is a rural area, okay? Came into the house. He immediately spoke to me. The individual maybe wasn't highly educated, but he could communicate well. Said, here's what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. He introduced the fellow that was with him, explained his role, laid it all out very quickly, to the point, and then went about doing the job, and then finished up. And he says, well, we charge X an hour, and we've only been here this long, so to speak. You have more time. Is there something else we could do while we're here? And that just struck me, that he said, well, you've got some more time. We've got to bill you for the hour. What else could we do for you? I thought that was pretty amazing. He wasn't like, okay, sign the ticket, write the check, we're out of here. We get to book an hour, we're only there, say, a half hour. That to me was amazing, and it makes me want, and has made me tell other people about that plumber. So you have to think of something in your business. And one of the things that I think is kind of fun, I was reading an article recently that was published in Inc. magazine back on November 18th of this year, and it was talking about building your business word of mouth. If you've never traveled, or if you've traveled and never stayed at a DoubleTree, and this happened to me at a Marriott, I think they've borrowed the idea at Marriott as well recently when I was traveling, is there's a plate of hot, fresh cookies. They have to be hot and they have to be fresh, because you've got to be able to smell them. And so when you check in, check out, stop by the counter to ask a question at the front desk, you can grab a cookie. You're encouraged to grab a cookie. What do I want to talk about? I don't want to talk about how clean the room is, or the fact that my room was made up properly, or, you know, that I could sleep, there wasn't any noise, or all the other amenities of the hotel. I want to talk about the cookies. I mean, just think about it. And it's true. They have found in a survey at DoubleTree that over 30% of the people that have been to DoubleTree are still talking about the cookies. And they're telling others. They're motivated to tell others about the cookies. The free cookies at DoubleTree, not just free, but they really, really taste good. So think about that. See if you can find the cookies, the hot, fresh cookies in your business, and you can put them out front with everyone who represents your business, who has contact with the customer. Look for those hot, fresh cookies. Get people talking about your business and referring your business word to mouth. The cost is not that much. It is the least expensive advertising out there. Go for it. See if you can find it. Well, we're going to take our final break of the day. And when we come back, I'm going to offer my onebestconsult.com tip of the week, why teamwork is so important in the success of any business. Please stay with us, and I'll be right back.
Have a legal question? Are you a resident of Montgomery County? Call 281-645-6344 to talk to a volunteer attorney from the Woodlands Bar Association. We answer the phones on the first Monday of every month at 281-645-6344 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to provide general legal information and information about legal resources to Montgomery County residents.
Don't miss Lone Star Community Radio on TV and YouTube. Our talk show and music shows are featured on Our City TV, Suddenlink Channel 12, and have their own YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with posted shows and comment on them below the video.
Hey guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your host. Well, we're in the final segment of today's show, and I again thank you for joining us. This is the segment where I like to talk about what I call my tip of the week. And today I'd like to talk about why teamwork is so important to success of any business. Now, first thing, a lot of you are going to say, okay, we know that. Everybody needs to work together. But let me give you some thoughts about how you can even make your team, your employees, more cohesive and actually up their productivity. You may think you're getting all you can get. You got the latest and greatest equipment. You've got that workflow down. You've got people at the counter within 15 seconds of a customer coming through the front door. They're answering the phone by the third ring. You're doing all these things right. But I think there's still some things out there that potentially you can do to get more out of your team. And it's very important that that teamwork be, I think, in your mind's eye on a regular basis to make sure your team is performing at its highest and best level. And I'm going to go to someone, a business person of some renown, Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the great American business people in our business history here in America back in the 19th and 20th century. He did a lot of great things besides building libraries all over the United States, free libraries for the public to learn how to read and have access to books. But Andrew Carnegie has a quote, and I really like it. Teamwork is the ability to work together toward a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishments toward organizational objectives. It is the fuel that allows common people to obtain uncommon results. I really like that quote. You need to break it down into 3 parts. First part is a common vision. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Your team, needless to say, everyone needs to be on the same page. You'll be amazed if you talk to your people. The fact is, they may not know what your common vision is. They know that they want to go from A to B, or they're supposed to get 20 of these done today, or when they talk to customers, they need to smile and be gracious and do all this. But they may not share a common vision as a team. Make sure you've explained to people and that you remind them on a daily basis, whether it's those silly posters that a lot of business puts up in the break room or as you come in the door. They seem silly, but I don't think they are. It's whatever works for your business. Remind people of what the common vision is. The second thing is individual accomplishments towards organizational objectives. Every one of your team is an individual. Okay, no doubt about it. And I hear some people actually through the radio laughing because people do things every day that shows they're individualistic. They have their own little quirks. They do this. Yes, we're all individuals. But the fact is, you want each individual to succeed in what they do in your business particularly. And hopefully you want them to succeed in life because that makes them a stronger, better, healthier, more effective employee for you. But the individual accomplishments have to be towards the objectives you have as a company. So one, you've got to make sure they understand the objectives, just like the vision. You got to understand what you're trying to accomplish there. Maybe it's as simple as, well, we want to sell more product. Well, you might find that you can dig down a little deeper and you'll find things that appeal to people. You kind of explain, well, we want to sell more of this chocolate candy over the holidays because it really motivates people to do business with us. And when the holidays are done, they'll come back. A good percentage of them will come back because they had a good experience with our chocolate candy. That's digging down a little deeper. Get those individual accomplishments, the things they do. reward them, compliment them, as long as they are in the purpose of the organizational objectives. And then thirdly, Andrew Carnegie says, common people to obtain uncommon results. Now think about that for a second. This is the idea that we motivate people to do things that they didn't think they could do. They accomplish work that they never believed they could do. Now, that could be turning out X number of units when they thought Y was all that was possible. They exceed goals. They exceed their potential. And that just doesn't happen overnight. It's not just it's something that just occurs as an act of nature or magical. It's something that happens every day when you encourage your people right, you motivate them right. Kind of falls back on some of the leadership ideas that we learned today from Terry Weaver. You are getting the very, very best out of each individual on your team. That's what teamwork's all about. You're getting the very, very best. And we talk about the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. You're taking that person who's the bottom, the weakest link, and you're moving them up. You're getting everyone on a daily basis in little doses to move onward and upward. That's how you build teamwork. That's when the success of the business depends on teamwork, because you and I both have been in businesses where the team works well together. We can see it in doing business with these companies, whether it's business to business or business consumer. You've had good experiences, you've had bad experiences, and I guarantee if you just look a little bit behind the door, the good experiences are going to have strong teams working with each other to produce the results that you experienced as being a customer of that business. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for the week. Again, thank you for joining this week, and I hope you'll come back next week. Put a note on your calendar, 11 o'clock Monday morning. We're going to be right here on irlonestar.com, also on Facebook Live. We're available to you, and we'll have our podcast out there as well. And as Terry told us, we're going to continue to part 2 of his leadership philosophy building, so I think you'll enjoy that. Look for the podcast of today's show, as I mentioned, on the Weekly Business Hour page, across the social media networks out there. Take a look at the show. Pass it on to a friend. Share what we're doing here and at One Best Consult. And most of all, thank you for joining us. Remember, stay in touch with what's happening here in Montgomery County, right here on Lone Star Community Radio. And as always, until next week, stay engaged in your business. Keep your focus on what counts in your business. Thanks.